I've had a few clients through accountants where the accountants advise, or the ATOs, along their normal channels have said, look, we'll cut a deal, but you've got to pay X amount up front, or you've got to do this. And as far as a lump sum payment goes. So that's another area that when we go in and get that halt to any action, for the most part, we will try and negotiate where the client doesn't put any money down until we know the result or know the path forward. So, keeps money in the bank for the client and keeps the cash flow operating as well.
Yeah, we hate providing upfront payments to the ATO. The ATO love them for obvious reasons, but we hate doing it, and we rarely do. And to be honest, the only time we would normally consider it is if you're right down the other end and about to be wound up. When I say down the other end, at this end of the recovery spectrum, it's where I told you, Tas, I use my hands a lot in these things.
That's fine. No problem.
Sometimes triggers the hand up thing, but at this end, you've got a debt with the ATO, and you're right at the beginning. They're just really saying, "Hey, you've got a debt for $150,000. We need to know what you're going to do to pay it off." All the way through to the other end, and there's steps in between there where you're in court tomorrow and you're getting wound up. In that circumstance, it's very hard to avoid an upfront payment. But down this end, and really most of the way along, we very, very rarely give them, because the problem is you give 30% upfront, and you've got a $100,000 tax debt, and you pay 30 grand, then your next BAS comes in and you can't pay it. Guess what? You defaulted the payment plan by not paying the BAS. There's a condition of every payment plan is you make the payments under it. And I still hear people saying no one told me. I also had to make sure we met all our ongoing lodgement and payment obligations on time. And so they'll say, I've seen dozens and dozens of businesses say, yes, we're in a payment plan. Then when we go and do our investigation with the ATO is saying, no, they breached it 6 months ago. And in fact, we're about to do A, B, and C to them. And I go back to the client and they say, but we've made every payment. Here's the portal statement. I go, yeah, but there was a BAS there you didn't lodge in, or you lodged it, and you paid it 2 weeks late. That defaults the payment plan. So you've got to meet all this along their way. If we can go maybe to the next slide then. One thing that's probably going to be useful for you to understand is that why we are where we are and why the ATO is going so hard. I've been doing this nearly 11 years, and this is the hardest I've seen the ATO in that whole time. Again, using my hands, if this is where the ATO were in terms of the going after businesses, if I can put it that way, prior to COVID, during COVID, it's on the floor. You can't see my hand. We're here now. Where it's the toughest I've ever seen. And the reason is it's pure numbers. Prior to COVID, and this is the ATO's reported figures, prior to, and I keep saying pre and post COVID because, and it's not just COVID, it was bushfires, floods, was all that stuff, but it's kind of a nice thing. If you look at the reported, and this is undisputed tax debt, and also 2/3 of this is owed by small business. So we're not talking top end of town. Prior to then, it was around $26 billion. The last reported figures from the ATO 30 June last year are 50. We believe it's over 60 at the moment because there's been more debt come on the system, but also that doesn't include stuff that's not reported. And from the businesses that we've seen, we know that pretty much every business we see has unreported tax debt. So what that means is even if you look at the reported, that's an 89% increase in the undisputed tax debt in a 4-year period. That's unprecedented. And so what that has meant is that the Commission is under incredible pressure to do 2 things: to reduce that number, and they can do it 2 ways: collect the debt or write it off. By write it off, they're winding up businesses and closing businesses. And the other thing is they need to get taxpayers compliant again because, and I think the ATO would acknowledge this, that part of the issue is that because they were so lenient during COVID, people got into what they call a non-tax paying state of mind and haven't fully emerged from that. And so, because if you think about it, when, everyone thought the world was going to end and the sky was going to fall down in the beginning of 2020. And so the ATO said to everybody, and it was the right move at the time, look, don't worry about it. If you've got debt with us, we're putting all that on hold. And also just keep lodging, but you don't even have to pay your ongoing stuff, and then they're also giving money away hand over foot, which was, I think, the right thing to have done, but it's had a negative consequence. And that is that we've now got businesses, as I said, we've gone from 26 to 50, and I think it's over 60 billion. And we've now got 2 problems, a lot more businesses. And that's why I said, if you've got any ATO debt at the moment, more the norm, then you're not Robinson Crusoe. There's a lot of debt out there. But the other thing that we're seeing is that the level of debt has increased significantly. Even just the businesses that we're seeing, and our client base hasn't changed that much over the last sort of few years, but it's almost double the size of the debts that we're seeing. So that's meaning that a lot of businesses are really struggling to even pay that out of cash flow. So there's often a need to get funding in. And that's something that we're seeing a lot more of, and we're getting a lot of contact from brokers, because we work with, even we just do the tax piece, but it's not in an isolation. There's generally in any transaction we're doing, there'll be an accountant involved. We would work with your accountant around it. In fact, we need information from the accountants. There may be a funder or a broker involved, and we work in conjunction with them, and then we bring the ATO into the transaction, and then make sure that the ATO are on board with what we're doing to whether it's a long-term payment plan that's sustainable, or it's if it's a short-term one just to get some funding in, or it's general, or it could be a combination of those things.